So Muldrotha, which should be Golgari, but for some reason it's Sultai. So we're just going to go with it. During each of your turns, you may play a land and cast a permanent spell of each permanent type of your graveyard. I guess since it's not exclusively creatures, that's why it's now Sultai. So I can cast a enchantment, an artifact, a creature, and a battle. Anything that's a permanent and a land from my graveyard every one of my turns. And a planeswalker. So we're going heavy on creatures. We have 30 creatures. We have battles in here. Yeah, you still have to pay its cost. But we're low. We're really low to the ground. Like you can see right here, like a lot of these are in the 1, 2, 3. We don't have that many sorceries and instants in here. We have a few just in case, but mostly this is going to be like we're just like playing creatures, enchantments, artifacts, battles. So battle. And one of the best thing is like we're just going to be throwing stuff into the graveyard and forcing our opponents to throw stuff into the graveyard. So Invasion of Ankhet. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills 3 cards, then each opponent discards a card and I draw a card. Battle Invasion of Fiora. When it enters the battlefield, choose one or both. Destroy all legendary creatures, destroy all non-legendary creatures. Just choose. Oh, also, they flip over once you defeat the battle. Lazotep Convert. It's a 4/4. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature that's in a graveyard. Doesn't have to be my own, except it's a 4/4 black zombie in addition to its other types. If I can get something really good off of someone else's graveyard, if not, I'll just copy something that's in my graveyard, and it's just a 4/4. And the best thing is, if this dies and it goes to my graveyard, then I could just recast it again. I don't care. Invasion of Fiora. If this flips, which is kind of difficult, but it's Mez Death Touch. Whenever it attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent. So this means it will kill another battle. It will kill a planeswalker. It will kill something that is just like getting pumped up, like your commander, because it'll just remove all the counters. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card and you lose one. Invasion of Zendikar. This one is probably it's definitely the weakest out of the 3, but I'm keeping it in here because it's 4 mana cost, and when it enters the battlefield, I look up for 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So if I can get this out on turn 4 or even earlier, if I'm hoping, which I'm kind of hoping, this guarantees that I can then play my commander next turn. So that's why this is in here. And you also may notice that I don't have any of the sorceries or instants that allow me to ramp. It is actually all permanents. Nissa of Shadowed, whenever land enters the battlefield, I can put a loyalty counter on her. +1, target land becomes a 3/3 land, has hasted menace until end of turn, it's still a land. Or -5, you may put a creature of converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or a graveyard with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So Nissa just, if I have her out and I get a bunch of land drops, she just grows bigger, and then I can -5 her. Why does it say toggle laser eyes? Tyvar, we've kind of been over, but he may activate. I don't. Sure. An April Fool's feature that adds laser eyes to your image that you can drag and drop. There you go. So his +1, untap up to 1 target creature, which is what I was using for the other Sultai deck that I was doing. But now we're going to be using the -2, which is mill 3 cards, and then you may return a creature card with mana value of 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And as you can see, we have a lot of 2-drops. So Baleful Strix, which we will give it laser eyes. Flying Death Touch, 1/1. Whenever it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Bloom Tender. You can tap it. It's a mana dork, but you get, for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So I can get a green, a blue, and a white. Or a black. Getting +1/+0 for having laser eyes. Yeah. Cankerbloom. Sacrifice Cankerbloom, choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate. Dauthi Voidwalker. It has Shadow. It's a 3/2. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter. You tap, sacrifice the Voidwalker, choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. So basically, you just tap, sacrifice it, and then you get whatever big creature. Phantasmal, which is really good, except of that one last ability if it's target of a spell or ability. Eternal Witness is a favorite of mine. Fiend Artisan, new card. Gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard. You pay X and Golgari, tap, sacrifice another creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Glendalandra, Archmage. Pay a blue, sacrifice it. Counter target non-creature spell, and then it has persist. So when it dies, you put a -1/-1 counter onto it, and it comes back onto the battlefield. Gravebreaker Lumia. These are kind of getting the more expensive ones. It has lifelink. It's a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, put it in your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less. Haywire Mart. When it dies, you gain 2 life. You pay a green, sacrifice it, exile target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. Junji, the Midnight Sky. Flying Menace 5/5. When it dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose 2 life. Lotus Cobra is a mana dork. Muldrifter. When it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. And I can invoke it. You pay the evoke cost. 2 and a blue. You may cast a spell for its evoke cost. If you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. So, funny thing, you can pay the evoke cost from the graveyard as long as I have my commander out. So all of a sudden, I'm now just paying 3 and I'm just drawing 2 cards. Playcrafter. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player that can't discards a card. Ravenous Chupacabra. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. I think you can see a pattern here. River Kelpie. When this or a permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. When a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. I play a card from a graveyard, I get to draw 2, essentially. And it has persist, which is ridiculous. Sakura Tribelver, so this is just sacrifice, get a land. Sheoldred, this is the what everything is leading up to in this deck. First, we have the Whispering one, which is 7 mana. Swamp Walk. At the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player sacrifices a creature. So, you can see there being a problem with this card. We also have Shriekmaw, which is enters the battlefield, destroy target non-black, non-artifact creature, and it has the evoke as well. But Sheoldred, 4/5 with Menace for 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. Then you pay 4 and a black, exile Sheoldred, then return it to the battlefield transformed under its own control. Activate only as a sorcery and only if opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And it flips to an enchantment. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls. Then next turn, each opponent discards 3 cards, then mills 3 cards. And then finally, on the third, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. And then you exile the True Scriptures, and then he returns back to the battlefield face up. You can see where this is going to be a problem. Sidisi. When it enters battlefield or attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever 1 or more creatures are put onto the battlefield under your control. Seems awkward on spell table. Yeah, will be a little awkward, but I'm willing to deal. Whenever 1 or more creatures are put into your graveyard from your library, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Cymrid Stormtamer. 1 for a 1/1 with flying. Pay a blue, sacrifice it, counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. Yeah, but I'm not asking you to count the number of creatures or cards that are in your graveyard. I'm literally just saying all of your creatures are now mine, and I'm probably winning. Because this is definitely a win con. Sad Robot. Whenever it's in the battlefield, you put a land card down. And whenever it dies, you draw a card. This is going to be a new favorite of mine. Spore Frog. Sacrifice Spore Frog. Prevent all combat damage. Spring Bloom Druid. Whenever it enters the battlefield, sacrifice the land. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Put them into the battlefield tapped. So, you bring him out. Could give him laser eyes. Sir Conrad the Grim. 5 mana for a 5/4. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature leaves the battlefield, or leaves the graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. And I can pay 2, and each player mills a card. Gidrog Monster. 6/6. Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever 1 or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. Guess what? I don't care, because I can just play lands from my graveyard because of my commander. So I feed the Gidrog Monster lands just to keep him happy. I get to draw cards. It's a win-win. Urberg, Luragriff. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but it's a 2 cost, so I'm kind of okay with it right now. And it has a kicker. So its power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. And if each time that it's kicked, you can mill 3 cards. Just an easy way to continue to mill cards. Uro, Titan of Wrath. You saw me play this on the other version of this deck. Enters battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life. Draw a card, and you can put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So it doesn't synergize that well, because it has to be for my hand, but that's okay. However, I don't have to specifically escape him, because I don't necessarily want to exile 5 other cards from my graveyard. Here's another fun card. It's called Wonder. This was something that I picked up on the Modern Horizons. 2/2 with flying for 4 mana overall. As long as it's in your graveyard, all other creatures I control have flying. And I control an island. Well, guess what? I'm going to make sure that it goes straight to the bin. World Shaper is just another thing to allow me to mill. Wonder. It's a good card. Anger gets the most attention. It's the red version, and as long as it's in your graveyard, all other creatures you control gain haste. Green is trample. I think white is vigilant, but black is by far the worst one. I forget what it is. I want to say it's grief or dread or something like that. But it's first strike. Okay, that's not bad. Giving everything first strike is pretty good. But black is Swamp Walk. It's so dumb. Cool, I guess. Why couldn't it have been Menace? I like giving stuff evasion, and that's why Wonder is so good, but Swamp Walk, really? It works really well if you have if you have the land that makes all other lands swamps in addition to their basic land types, then it makes sense. But that card is stupid expensive. Other cards that we have in here, Balagad Recovery. I have it in here. I'm debating if I want to take it out. It's nice if I can get it in my hand somehow, because then I can return target card from my graveyard to my hand. Otherwise, I can flip it over, and it's just a land that comes into battlefield tapped. Breach the Multiverse. This is a card that is absolutely amazing. One, it turns on Sheoldred, so it guarantees that no more Blood Moon. It turns on Sheoldred because it guarantees that there's at least 10 cards in everyone's graveyard, which you need 8 in order to flip her. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker in that player's graveyard. Put those onto the battlefield under your control. Then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. Last part I don't really care about. However, put stuff into the graveyard, and I get to just steal creatures, or is it just creatures? Or planeswalkers. Blood Moon with laser eyes, sure. Diabolic Intent just allows me to tutor, and I don't really care about sacrificing anything, so that's why it's in here. And Torment of Hailfire, I put it in here because I already had it, and it's on theme of just like forcing people to sacrifice. So it's in here. I don't know if it's ever going to be used, but sure. Other things, Assassin's Trophy, I went with Destroy Target Permanents. So Assassin's Trophy, Destroy Target Permanent, you can search for a basic land. So turns whatever into a basic land. Destroy Target Permanent, get a 3/3 beast creature. Entomb, I could tutor and throw it into the yard, which is obviously what I want to do. In Swan Song, it was just a counterspell that I could just put down. Then we have our artifacts, and we went heavy on the mana ramping. So Arcane Signet, Conduit of Worlds allows me to play lands from my graveyard, and I can tap, choose a non-land permanent in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that spell. If you do, you can't cast any additional spells. So if per se, my commander is in my graveyard and it's been, I don't want to pay the commander tax. I can keep it in the graveyard, tap Conduit of Worlds, and just bring out my commander for 6 mana instead of like 12. Expedition Map. I can pay 2, tap, sacrifice Expedition Map, search my library for a land card, reveal it, put it to my hand. So for say like Command Tower, any of the non-basics, Lotus Field, any of the fetch lands, then I can go do that. Perpetual Timepiece. This is another mill card. I can tap, put 2 cards of my library into my graveyard, and then I can pay 2 exile Perpetual Timepiece, shuffle any number of target cards from your graveyard into my library. So say that I am getting close to milling myself out, or someone is about to go lethal on me because I have so many cards in my graveyard. I can pay to exile this and just dump my graveyard back into my library. Soul Ring, obviously. Swiftfoot Boots, obviously. Wayfarer's Bauble. Went with this. I don't know if there's anything better, because like I do have a lot of 1-drops in here, and they're all artifacts. So I might, I don't know, cut this. We'll see. But basically, it's just to search for a basic land. Binding the Old Gods. Enchantment with that's a saga. Destroy target non-land permanent in opponent controls. Could be a creature, could be a artifact, could be an enchantment. And then I could search for a forest. Doesn't have to be a basic forest, so I could search for the Triome. Otherwise, it's just going to be a forest. And then creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Not really going to see that get a whole lot of use, but if this is the only destroy target permanent that I have, I can just recur this. Court of Cunning. This was in a late edition, and I absolutely love it. When Court of Cunning enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Ace, I don't know if you're familiar with the Monarch. One player will become the Monarch, and then they are allowed to draw an additional card at their end step. And then anyone who does combat damage, I believe it's combat damage, I'll have to look this up, to the Monarch, then becomes the Monarch themselves. And the most basic property of being the Monarch, combat damage. Okay. The most basic property of being a Monarch is that you get to draw a card at the end of your turn. Any number of target players are going to mill 2 cards. If I am still the Monarch, so if I don't get hit by combat damage up to my next turn, then all of those players will mill 10 cards instead. Imprisoned in the Moon. I'm very surprised you have not selected this card and why this is only 69 cents. Because this is an absurd card. I figured I didn't need an extra reason for people to hit me. That's fair. Imprisoned in the Moon. Enchant creature, land, or planeswalker. So it doesn't hit artifacts or enchantments, but who the hell cares? especially because this can hit commanders. I'm wondering why this isn't banned or what. Enchanted Permanent is a colorless land with tap, add colorless mana, and loses all other card types and abilities. So I don't know if this is just like frowned upon. It's not banned as far as I can tell. But yeah, this will just get rid of a commander. I don't know. Maybe when I pull this out, someone's going to just be like, you can't play that. We will hate you forever. Journey into Eternity. Enchant creature you control. When an enchanted creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control. Then return Journey to Eternity to the battlefield transformed under your control. You flip it. It becomes a legendary land. Tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Or pay 3 in Golgari. Tap. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Kaya's Ghost Form. It's the same as this, but cheaper and doesn't flip over. Enchanted creature or planeswalker you control when enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return it back into the battlefield under your control. Mystic Remora. Really good card. I've been really wanting to play this, and finally I will be able to. I do hate, because I got this printing. And they definitely have done an errata. So cumulative upkeep is 1. Whenever target opponent successfully casts a non-creature spell, you draw a card. That player may pay 4 in order to counter this effect. So going back to the more modern, cumulative upkeep, at the beginning of your upkeep, put an age counter on this permanent, then sacrifice it unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter on it. So, first turn, it's out when it's your upkeep again, you pay 1, then you pay 2, then you pay 3, etc., etc. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, so that's the errata, it's any opponent, it's not just a target opponent, you may draw a card unless that player pays 4. So unless you're playing creature cards all the time, like, I'm going to be drawing cards. Now, what kind of limits this card usually, let's get the Dominator Remastered one, is the cumulative upkeep, because like after a while you don't want to keep paying 2, 3, 4, and 5 mana in order to keep drawing all those cards. You want to be doing something else. However, with this deck, I can just bring it back for 1 mana after it gets too expensive, and then just keep playing it over and over again. Seal of Doom. Sacrifice Seal of Doom. Destroy a target non-black creature. It cannot be regenerated. And I can just keep bringing this back. I mean, granted, it's only 1 enchantment per turn, but this is just a dark banishing on demand anytime that I want. Seal of Primordium. Sacrifice Seal of Primordium. Destroy a target artifact or enchantment. Same thing. Seal of Removal. Sacrifice Seal of Removal. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Secrets of the Dead. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, draw a card. Sultai Ascendancy. So this is, I added it last minute, and it's mostly to save me from throwing my instants and sorceries in the bin. At the beginning of your upkeep, you look to the top 2 cards of your library, put any of them back into your graveyard, and put the rest on top of your library in any order. So before I draw a card, before I start like milling everything, I can decide if I want to draw something or if I'm okay with just like throwing it in the bin. Cruelty of Gix. I can read ahead if I choose to, or I can just let it resolve. 3 sagas. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature or planeswalker from it. Then that player discards that card. Saga 2. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand. Then shuffle. You lose 3 life. Or Saga 3. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I mean, it's any graveyard. Yeah. and I can read ahead. So if I know that there's like a really tasty creature that I want to just like bring out, then I can just go and do that immediately for 5 mana. Eldest Reborn. Each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. 2, each opponent discards a card. 3, put a target creature or planeswalker from a graveyard onto the battlefield under control. So same as Cruelty of Gix, except it's sacrifice and discard versus pointed discard and tutor. And then Unbridled Growth. This is a card I think I might ditch. I kept it in here just so that I could, if I got mana screwed, like I needed like blue mana or I needed black mana specifically, like I can play this and then I can just sacrifice it to draw a card. It's honestly pretty weak, but and it's not like we're hurting for 1-drops. We have a lot of 1-drops. So I might get rid of this and put something a little bit more better. In terms of lands, we have the tutor, the fetch lands. We have one of each. I might cut one of the blue ones. I don't know. It may be Maestro's Theater because I don't think I need blue and black as much. I really do need to get the green out though, especially at the beginning of the game. So I might cut this and put another forest in, or I might just cut a swamp and put another forest in. So yeah, Broker's Hideout allows me to search for a forest, plains, or island. Obviously, I'm just going to be doing forest and island. Command Bacon. Tap, sacrifice it, put your commander into your hand from the command zone. So if it gets too expensive, I can just put it into my hand, cast it there. Command Tower, Deathcap Glade. These are just going to be dual lands on here. Lotus Field, sacrifice 2 lands, and then it taps at 3 mana of any one color. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is what we had cut before. I was thinking about Vorinclex, which allows me to put in 2 lands, and then you exile him, and you get the Grand Evolution. You mill 10 cards, put 2 creatures from the cards that were milled directly onto the battlefield. Distribute 7 +1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures you control until end of turn. Creatures you control gain pay 1. This creature fights target creature you don't control, and then exile the Grand Evolution. So it is a really good card. But my 5-drops were getting a little heavy. And so I kind of just decided that, you know what, let's not do that. I was also thinking about Braids, because I can just sacrifice anything. I don't really care. And then I can just bring it back, and it forces the opponents to either sacrifice or lose 2 life, and I get to draw a card. Marin of Killen, Neltoth. I was looking at this card. I did order this card, and then the LGS didn't have it, and so I just have cut it. Whenever another creature you control dies, you gain an experience counter. I was going to combine her with the Ezri Claw of Progress because you get experience counters and they're the same counters. And so like you could double up on the experience counters. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, you put it into your hand. So every turn, essentially, you get to just put a creature card back into your hand from your graveyard. Ramunap Excavator allows you to just play lands from your graveyard. It's the same as Conduit of Worlds, just creature form. I figured there was enough redundancy that I didn't need this. Reclamation Sage enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I already have a lot of artifact or enchantment hate in here. Tatiova was another one of those 5 mana. It's just like, you know what? Like my 5 drops are already really heavy, and this doesn't really do me anything other than drawing a card and gaining a life is not really like going to be all that special. But Titan of Industry. I really wanted to put this in my deck, and I did for quite a while, but it doesn't have any other synergies. It's just a big body. So I can destroy target artifact or enchantment, which I already have a lot of. I can gain 5 life. I can create a 4/4 Rhino, or I can put a shield counter on a creature you control. Not a whole lot of synergies. It's just a nice 7/7 reach trample. Can put a shield counter, and I can maybe either gain life or get a 4/4 Rhino. Topiary Stomper. This was another card, and that's where I ended up with Avenger of Zendikar. When it enters the battlefield, I might search for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So I immediately go from 3 to 4 mana. So it's a nice ramp. It cannot attack or block until you have 7 or more lands. Then we have the sorceries and instants. So this was stuff that I had put in here, and then I decided, hey, you know what? It's probably better not, if I'm going to be throwing a bunch of stuff into the bin, not to have instants and sorceries. So I had Insane Grenade, I had Life from the Loam, Nature's Lore, Cultivate, Culling Ritual, which allows me to destroy any non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, and then gain Golgari mana colors for each permanent destroyed this way. Could have been cool, but I kind of just figured I don't want to rely on drawing that or wasting my Eternal Witness or Balaget Recovery in order to reclaim it, essentially. Same with Putrefy. We have a lot of creature hate. Heroic Intervention I really did want to keep in here, but I decided not to. Kind of keeps the cost down. Sultai Charm, also just, it's either creature, artifact, or enchantment hate, or draw cards and discard. Dictate of Erebos I thought about, but I don't actually have a lot of creature I don't have a lot of sacrifice creature. I can sacrifice my own creatures whenever a creature you control dies. So this is the one where it was like the Butcher of Malakir. Whenever a creature dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. 1 is an expensive card. 2 is I have a lot of creature destruction. I think this is just getting overkill. Plus it's 5 mana. Colony Heart Expedition, I thought about it, but then I was like, I don't know if it would be really good if I can get this out on turn 2, but otherwise it kind of just sucks. Because you have to get 3 land drops, and then you get 2 more lands. So on turn 2, and then you hit your 3 and your 3, the 4, and 5, and then you're up to 7 mana. Great, but you're not hitting. It's not allowing me to ramp all the way up to my commander, which is 6 mana, and that was the kind of the main focus, and that's why Invasion of Zendikar was a better choice. And Oversold Cemetery, this is just another. It was another redundancy. If I wanted to. If I have 4 more creatures in my graveyard, I may return target creature from the graveyard to my hand. So I thought about maybe this would be a good thing, and this could also be something that replaces Unbridled Growth, where it's just if my commander does get a lot of hate, this would be something that kind of saves it. So anyway, that's the new deck. We'll be happy to play with it whenever you guys are ready. But I have to go. I gotta go to the gym, and I have not been hydrating at all. So this is gonna be all sorts of fun. So, all right. I will see you guys in a bit. Sounds like Reshi is buying some cards soon. Okay. Well, let me know. Be fun to add Reshi. And if he wants help or just some ideas, send them over to me, and we can discuss some ideas. And won't go super hard on him. Maybe I'll use one of like the precons or something just to get him started so he's not like, oh my god, what the fuck. But anyway, I gotta go. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. I only have 2 decks. Well, then don't play. Well, I think your mill deck will probably not be. How come you go easy on him? Because it's Reshi. We knew you would stick around. Love you, Ace. All right. See you guys later.